welcome to the Marin Women's Political Action Committee's Candidates Endorsement Forum, which is our annual big event and really why we're in business. I'm Gina Brewer, president of the organization, and I'd like to introduce the other members of our Political Action Committee. PAC Chair Michelle Barney, who will be moderating tonight's proceedings. Tamara Hull, Joan Thayer, Samantha Sargent, Vicki Nichols, who's right here. And thank you everybody for contributing your time to this event. It is greatly appreciated. I'd like to welcome our candidates in attendance tonight and thank them for joining us. We will be hearing from candidates from the following races: Marin County Supervisor, District 5, Corte Madera Town Council, the Marin County Assessor Recorder Clerk Office, Marin County District Attorney, and the Marin County Superintendent of Schools. Our format for this evening will be one in which each candidate will be given 2 minutes to give an opening statement, followed by questions from the audience posed by our Political Action Committee. In other words, you can give us questions. We have questions as well. Samantha Sargent, raise your hand, will be our timekeeper. So the candidates have to keep their eye on her. Thank you, Samantha. For anyone who wishes to ask a candidate a question, please fill out the index cards that are being passed around and collected by Catherine Hilliard.
No, Ronita Egger.
Well, that's what,
Ronita.
okay, Ronita.
Catherine is ballots.
Oh, she's doing ballots, oh,
So
sorry.
Ronita's in the back.
Okay.
And so if you want to ask a question, just raise your hand and she'll bring you a card.
And then Catherine's doing ballots, okay. If somebody has to leave early, but we don't want you to, and we'll lock the doors. Okay, the PAC will try to address as many questions as possible as time will allow. At the end of the forum, MWPAC members will conduct a caucus. This is open to our members only, so non-members and candidates will be asked to step outside until the caucus has been completed. Members will then vote, and we will count the ballots and announce the results of the vote. For members who must leave before we caucus, and candidates who are MWPAC members, please turn your ballots in at the door. So that's Catherine. That's Catherine.
Stand up, Catherine. Yeah. Oh, you can. Yeah. No, you don't have to be at the door. That's just a generic speech.
If you do not want your vote counted in a particular race, please choose the abstain option. If you would like to vote for no endorsement or recommendation, but have your vote counted, please choose that option. I highly recommend that members stay to hear all the candidates speak in the races so that when you vote, you will know who they are, and you can give the candidates your fullest consideration. Again, thank you, candidates, members, and guests for joining us tonight. And now Michelle will fill you in. 51%.
51? Yes, it's 51%. So we count, so if somebody abstains, we don't count their vote. If they say no endorsement, we do count that. So, 51 in each race.
Yeah.
So your ballot is divided into races. If you don't want to vote on a race, you can say abstain, and that's okay. We've had that before. If somebody doesn't know enough, why vote? Why do 50-50? So you have many choices. The first candidate is Judy Arnold. She's candidate for the Marin County Supervisor, District 5. Would you like to join us? Yes.
Sure.
The other candidate running chose not to seek endorsements, so she is not here this evening. So please ask once again, if you have questions for Judy, please raise your hand. And where's Ronita? Oh, yeah, Ronita will give you a card, and then she'll bring them up. And we do have some questions from the panel that we've sort of come, just in case nobody asks a question, but hopefully you will. And for the candidates, please don't touch this little stem here. because, or you'll get in trouble. You can just talk into it, just talk close to it, and as you can see, the closer you get, it has very good range.
Great.
And there's ice water for you if you'd like as well.
You great. Are you
Thank
ready?
you for joining us, Judy.
Thank you. Thank you for putting this on. It's nice to see everyone again in my lonely seat like 4 years ago. But it's been a busy 4 years. The SMART train is up and running and exceeding all expectations. We've worked with Assemblymember Levine's office to reduce housing density in future projects. The Stafford Lake Bike Park has built another area for families, and it's very exciting. And we've expanded the South Novato Library, even including a makerspace. Going forward, my priorities are emergency services, getting SMART to Larkspur, Highway 37, and finishing the downtown Novato Theater. I have been a supervisor aide. I worked for 2 state senators, one of whom was the pro tem, and I served on the Novato City Council. And every day I bring that experience to help solve problems for constituents. My job is to listen and to help Novato reach what they really want, and that is safe neighborhoods, civility, fairness, hard work, and a sustainable future, which also includes fiscal responsibility. It's my honor to represent our families and our local businesses and keep the balance between progress and protection. My motivation and inspiration has been because of your trust and partnership, and I want to thank you for that. Yep. It's okay.
Okay,
Question.
we're going to start the
Ready?
questions.
Yep.
Where does the golf course project stand at the moment, and do you think there was enough public input outside of the IJ's letters to the editor?
Where the golf course stands right now is that the supervisors have brought in someone to run the golf course for 2 years. Parks and Open Space are having weekly meetings in San Geronimo to see what the people want. Do I think that there was enough notice? No, I don't. I think the fact that people living in West Marin did not want to see open space, I think was a shock. It was a shock to me. When this came to us, I just thought, oh, great. We can do these other things, a waste treatment center, maybe put the fire department where the clubhouse is, and I had no idea just how the people felt. And so in talking to them, they changed my mind in the sense that I do not think that we should use 1.4 million of general fund money for the golf course. My district could use money for flood control, and I just think that wasn't fair. So I voted on the second vote. I voted no to allocate the money.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do you have something?
Hi,
Hi.
Supervisor Arnold. Thank you. Highway 37,
Yes.
what are the issues and what are the solutions to traffic congestion and the effects of sea level rise? That's what we're all looking at. Do you have an opinion about the possible privatization and possibly a toll road on the highway, or what other solution might you propose?
Well, I think before we look at that, I think what we need to do is we need to have some information. There are 4 counties represented on the Highway 37 committee, and these are supervisors from Solano, Sonoma, Napa, and Marin. And Sonoma and Solano are looking at getting other lanes put in where 37 goes down to two lanes, which is a real pinch point. And there have been talks from from different businesses, although they've kind of vanished, that came in and said, we can do an elevated road for you, and showed places where they did it, like in Virginia, and we pay for it out of tolls. That conversation hasn't gone any further. But what I'm focused on is segment B, which is Sonoma and Solano. They are proposing using funding from RM3 to help pay for that. And I'm saying to them, look, you can reduce the pinch point, but you're not going to get to 101 unless you give Marin some money to study the flooding. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, and that's what I'm looking at right now. And especially with sea level rise, this study has to look at what sea level rise is going to do and factor that in. So that's the stage that we're in now on 37.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So this is from the audience, and I'll tack on a little bit. They're saying real affordable housing, where, when, and how. And you had mentioned that you've been working with Assemblyman Levine to reduce the density. So how do we get this affordable housing?
The reducing the density is just simply putting Marin County where Sonoma and Petaluma, Napa, and Solano is, and that's 20 units per acre for affordable housing. This is a problem that we all face and we all agonize over. The board has decided that they're going to try to do what we can with existing housing. We have met with landlords. We have gone from 40 landlords to 75 who have signed on and said, we will take Section 8 renters. They didn't do that before, but the county has said, if you will, we will pay for a 24-hour hotline in case you need to call us for problems. And if there's a problem and some things have been done to the apartment, we've allocated $500,000 to clean that up. Another thing that we have done is we are looking at JDUs, which are junior accessory units. If somebody has a big house, they want to have a bedroom with a hot plate and what was the other thing? Well, anyway, you can apply for that, and the county for 1 year will waive the funds. So that's another thing we're doing. We're also trying to get accessory dwelling units looked at. And we bought a mobile home park in Woodacre, and we're now looking at buying the military housing in Point Reyes. That's not enough. We need to do more, but, oh, I forgot to look for that. Okay?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. The county computer system was once an issue. Has the current upgrade performed as contracted?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there when the supervisors voted for SAP, but I was when we voted on the new system from Tyler. And it is much more promising. When SAP was approved, they did not have software for governments the size of the county. They were for huge companies. Now Tyler and some others are really for local governments like the county. I'm on a subcommittee with Supervisor Sears. We have regular meetings to see how everything is going, and we're almost ready to go live with the finance part of it, so it's working well.
So earlier on in your opening statement, you mentioned one of your priorities is emergency services. Can you expand a little bit on that and tell us what you feel is included in that?
Okay. I'm the chair of emergency services for the county, and that job became very important last summer with Sonoma. And what we're doing is two things. Number one, for emergency services, we are reaching out to neighborhoods and to schools to show them, here's what you need to do, here's the steps you need to take, here's who you call to have practice evacuations in your town or in your neighborhood. Then we're also, I ask Supervisor Rodoni, because he's from West Marin where there was a big problem. We have met first with the first responders from Sonoma and listened to what they had to say. Then we met with the first responders from Marin to hear what they're doing and their comments to what Sonoma was doing. Then we had a public meeting that was a filled chambers, and people gave their comments about what the public came and gave their comments, and now we're going to take that and bring a suggestion to the Marin Board of Supervisors.
Thank you.
Yep.
Homeless. It's the big issue. How are you going to solve it by yourself?
Yeah, right. Well, actually, that's funny you say that, because just today I got a meeting with with Dr. Grant from the Health and Human Services, and we are embarking on a program called Housing First. And for the first time, Homeward Bound and St. Vincent de Paul are on board with making this happen. And what we're doing is we're taking those who are the neediest and we're going to house them under the premise that you can't really receive services if you don't have a home. And we have gotten rental homes. We've gotten 75 homes already. I saw today, how many minutes? Okay. They're building tiny homes, which I'm talking to the county about. Can't we put that, especially in West Marin, for agriculture housing?
Okay, do we have is there a good card there? Well, how will you get housing for chronic mentally ill?
We have hired a behavioral psychologist right now that is working on finding housing for the mentally ill. The Marin Housing Authority has a program for mentally ill where we will house them in certain places, but it's walking down 4th Street to come here tonight. There's a great need, and I understand that.
Okay. Vicki?
As a SMART board member, can you share the schedule and projected cost of bringing SMART to Larkspur and where you are in the process? Meaning the SMART board, not you.
Right. It's $25 million, and we just got the money from the federal government. Farhad said he wasn't having much luck getting the money was allocated, but it wasn't dispersed, and he said he went back to Washington, D.C. and talked to his cousins, and and I didn't ask who they were. Anyway, the money, and we, since August 25th until April 1st, 440,000 people have ridden the Novato train, the SMART train. There are 13,000 bicycles and 1,200 wheelchairs that have used it, and we've ordered 4 more cars. It's so popular.
All right, thank you.
I was chair for 4 years, just for your information.
Do we have time for one more?
Yeah.
So, all right, so my last question is on the Fireman's Fund building in Novato.
Yes.
Do you have any suggestions or
Well,
dreams for it?
it's in the city limits, and I keep trying to prod the city manager, whom I meet with every month, to tell me what he's thinking. First of all, nothing could happen until the Alliance's lease was over, and it is now. So he says we should be seeing something. So I'm just in the dark as much as you. Okay, I just want to do a quick close, and I'm looking at my questionnaire that had to be filled out, and one of the questions was, whom do you consider your base of support and why? And I put down, individuals, businesses, labor, and I said ill-behaved women, and I just see that my aide put down women activists, and that's way too tame. So I just want you to know that. And in closing, some people look at the future with fear, and the anger and the vitriol is crept into local politics. I believe that we're one community and our future is optimistic. I think I have the experience and the temperament to continue my work for you, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
And I'm leaving because at 9 o'clock the board meets and we're looking at the local coastal plan. Sorry.
Thank you. Next up are the candidates for the Corte Madera Town Council, Eli Beckman, David Kuhnhart, and Valeria Sasser. David, sorry, I did change your name on that, and
Thank you
somehow
very
well, it's not showing up, so I apologize.
corrected on the ballot, so that's all.
Oh, okay, maybe I have the wrong ballot.
Are
Oh,
we,
you're right.
are we letting them each give a 1-minute opening statement?
2-minute opening statement
opening
followed by the
statement.
questions. We had a little wiggle room on today, so I felt that, we have 25 minutes, so. Opening, closing statements only if we have time. We'd rather have more questions from the audience, if you want to help with that. Once again, please no touching the stem. Okay, why don't we start with, I guess, my left to right. David, introduce yourself.
Good evening, my name is David Kuhnhart. I am running for the second time for the Corte Madera Town Council. It's really good to be here with you all. I have essentially said, why am I running? I am running to put a forward lean on the government of Corte Madera, which has been in certain ways backwards leaning. Bless you, Stephanie. Which has been backwards leaning for a little bit too long on certain issues, particularly environment, housing, and transportation. Fortunately, we have quite a turnover in our council this year. 2 longtime members are retiring, and there are 4 of us running for 3 slots. I am, I think, the person who has the most experience in finance, so about 30 years of that, over 20 of those years with real estate finance, particularly in community development and affordable housing finance. At one point during my 10 years with Transamerica as the Senior Vice President of Community Investments, I was, in fact, President of the Affordable Housing Investors Council, ahic.org, if you want to look it up. In 2003, when there was a risk that program would go away. And it's the biggest federal subsidy program for new affordable housing across the country. For the last 10 years, I've been focusing and walking the walk, not just talking, but walking the walk on environmental matters and on renewable energy. I've been in the solar industry since 2007 and have, for the last 5 years, been a co-founder and president of SolEd Benefit Corp., a benefit corporation working towards the triple bottom line of people, planet, and prosperity. We've done a lot of solar for schools and municipalities, including the city of San Rafael, that saves them money. But as a businessman, I am very sensitive to the role of business in our business concentrating town of Corte Madera, and I suddenly see stop. I'm sorry, I didn't see a yellow card, but I do see the stop card. Oh, thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking the Marin Women's Political Action Committee for the opportunity to be here. My name is Eli Beckman. I'm a lifelong resident of Corte Madera. I'm an architectural designer in San Francisco. It's currently my honor and my privilege to serve on Corte Madera's Flood Control Board. I'm also an incident commander in my neighborhood's neighborhood response group and an active member of the Corte Madera Lions Club, to which I have been recently elected a director. I'm running for town council in Corte Madera because this is the first time since the recession that our town is on solid enough footing to invest in our own future. I believe we can seize that opportunity by doing 3 things. First, let's renew our commitment to the principles of responsible governance. I believe we should take full advantage of new and emerging technologies to make local government more efficient, effective, transparent, and accessible to the community. Second, we need to work with local businesses to help prepare Corte Madera's economy for the online retail era. I support local businesses in their preparation to shift business models in a way that may be more competitive in this new era, and I also believe that it's important for the town to plan for the potential implications that online retail could have on our tax revenue. Third, climate change is a huge issue for Corte Madera. 1/3 of our town is already in a floodplain at current sea levels, and we know that sea level is only going to continue rising. I believe it's time now to take aggressive action to counter this issue with protection of our property while planning for the long-term implications of sea level rise. Additionally, our town faces struggles with transportation and housing, and I also believe we need to examine how we make Corte Madera a more equitable and inclusive community for all. This is an exciting time for Corte Madera, but it's also an exciting time in our society. Long-standing and unspoken systems in our society that are forces of inequality are finally being questioned and challenged, and with our help, they can be vanquished. Corte Madera, as a small town, is not immune from these forces. I, as a candidate, am committed to helping address all of these problems and more on the Corte Madera Town Council. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Valeria Sasser, and it's an honor to be here tonight seeking your endorsement for my candidacy to the Corte Madera Town Council. I have 16 years of government experience ranging from foreign relations to state government. I work for the Judicial Council of California since 2007, and I have a master's degree in education. Corte Madera is financially sound after many years of trouble, and the town management has made strong plans for the next 2 decades. But I believe we can make Corte Madera more diverse, more inclusive, and we should make stronger plans. Since we still have a lot to do there, especially regarding climate change issues, we must prepare for disasters, floods, flooding, and sea level rising, as well as addressing the triad, transportation, transit, and traffic, including sidewalks and protection rails for pedestrians and the so much needed affordable workforce housing. And that's why I support Measure F. If passes, it will provide funds for capital improvement projects that address some of these issues. Cities and towns are taking the lead regarding government agility and efficiency. Corte Madera is in a good position, and it's small enough to take care of its problems proactively. That's why I'm running. I'm excited to be part of the town's future, also helping it to be an example of good practices in our county and in our state. Hopefully, the Marin Women's Political Action Committee will take this path with me, who, if elected, will be the only woman and the only immigrant on the council. We can do much more together. Thank you.
Okay. We'll start with David, and we'll work across the way. What are your solutions to the decline of brick and mortar retail establishments closing and the corresponding reduction in sales tax revenue? Do you have any other ideas about possible streams of revenue, considering Corte Madera has the 2 major shopping centers?
Right. Thank you for that question. First of all, I think that the demise of retail in Corte Madera is greatly exaggerated. In fact, the retail situation in Corte Madera is quite good. We do derive about 40% of our annual budget from sales tax, and we are, as was mentioned by Valeria, proposing an increase in the local override from a half penny to 3/4 cent. There are 2 regional malls in our town, which all of you are benefiting us with. Thank you for shopping in our beautiful malls, which are not declining as much as, let's say, Northgate, which has a couple of the bigger, older retail organizations, Sears and Kohl's are not frontline retailers. We have some really quite exciting progress in our town, but that is definitely an issue. Fortunately, we are budgeting in $500,000 of leeway in our Measure F and dependence upon the the sales tax going forward.
Eli?
Thank you. I see the shift of retail online as one of these huge tectonic climate change level issues facing Corte Madera. Our town is pretty unique in how heavily we rely on sales tax revenue. As David mentioned, we have our two big regional shopping malls there. We're fortunate that as higher end malls, these malls are doing better than other malls in the region, but I do not want to be lulled into a false sense of security by any means. So I think that there's three things that Corte Madera needs to do to help prepare ourselves for these shifts in retail. The first is I think we need to continue supporting local businesses as they innovate their business models to try and find a new way of doing business that might be more competitive in the online retail era. The second is I think Corte Madera needs to move aggressively with our neighboring municipalities, and I think really all municipalities in the state, to lobby aggressively in Sacramento and Washington to make sure that online retailers like Amazon, for example, are collecting and giving towns like Corte Madera their municipal sales tax. If the people of Corte Madera pass a sales tax, that tax needs to be collected and paid to the people of Corte Madera. That's only right. Third, I think it's incumbent on our town to plan for the long-term implications and set up, as you mentioned in the question, sort of a contingency plan, an alternate tax structure. And I think that's going to be a discussion that has to happen with the community at large. Thank you.
Do I answer too? Okay. I agree with what was said before. In general, I won't repeat. If I agree, I would just point that I agree with that. So I think it's more women doing this kind of thing, right? Yes, that specifically this part of online collecting the sales tax and reverting to the city what is given, what is due to the city. But I also would suggest that we promote the hotels and services in town. Hotels could generate taxes, as is being proposed in West Marin recently by the supervisor that takes care of that area. And it can be done in Corte Madera too. We can renovate the hotels the way it is stopped for a long time there. Those renovation projects they have, we can go ahead with that, have that occupancy intense all the time. Is at the entrance of the city, is not going to stop the traffic, is not going to impact much anything. People will be right there. And we will also generate revenue shopping and using the services in town.
Hi, Eli, we'll start with you this time. Putting the Wind Cup development aside,
Phew.
what measures would you recommend for the creation of more truly affordable housing in Corte Madera? And where should the new housing be located?
That's a great question. I think the creation of more equitable and inclusive housing is one of the biggest challenges that our town faces. To start with the issue of where to place it, I don't like the idea of congregating affordable housing or subsidized housing in any one location. I think that kind of helps stigmatize it, which is not right. I think more affordable housing should be dispersed throughout town. That really helps promote economic diversity within the community, and I think, like I said, also reduces stigmatization. I think that one tool in our toolbox that's going to be useful to prioritize the creation, incentivize the creation of more affordable housing is if we create town policies that encourage or at least don't stand in the way of the creation of accessory dwelling units. I see accessory dwelling units as a potential tool to help create a more stock of more affordable housing. I think it's safe to assume that a secondary unit will command a slightly lower rent than a primary residence. So I think that's certainly a tool that we should examine. There's of course the issue of parking there, and that needs to be addressed. But I do think that this is going to be an important tool for us to look at. Thank you.
Valeria?
As Eli said, I absolutely support junior accessory dwelling units. We have space for that. And I also support we doing a thorough exam of all the multi-use possibilities we have in town. And we have tons of spots that can be done like that. We can add a second floor to certain areas that will not impact the small town feel and the community the way it is. So we need to tread carefully in on that path, but I think we still can do a lot more with open heart.
David?
This issue's been front and center for me for a long time. First of all, because I was working in that public-private partnership creation and investment, and I was the senior community investment investor and officer for Transamerica. We did 2 sizable affordable properties actually in Novato during my time there, and I would say there are a number of tools that are open and available to us. I think this draws a little bit of a distinction, or I would like to draw a little bit of a distinction with what Eli represented, which is, I think there's a little too much fear about having an affordable property all in one place being stigmatized. One of the most beautiful of the many, there's about 36 beautiful affordable housing properties in the county of Marin, and one of those is San Clemente Place on Santa Clemente Drive in Corte Madera. 79 units, all in one place, all affordable, managed by EAH, who's been at it for 50 years. And it is a very welcome participant and a very welcome contributor to the big picture. In all, junior accessory units, which I have also championed, have produced about 5 units. 79, 5. What is going to be the answer to supply and demand, which is the big problem?
Okay.
My turn.
I think it's
You kind of
Oh,
cut
yeah,
in
I'm
on my
trying- yeah,
questions?
well,
Oh, I see how it is. Just kidding. So we're going to continue on the theme of housing. I know that the junior dwelling unit concept, I think, was started by Rachel Guinness when she was a resident of Corte Madera, and she started one in Corte Madera. She was in a flood zone, though. So how do you balance the flood zone issues, the flooding issues, the 100-year climate change with putting these junior units? Where are you going to put them? In Chapman Park? You're not going to put them down in Golden Pine Passage? I think we get to start with Valeria.
That's a trick question.
That's why I asked it.
We have a lot, of course. There are areas we can do that and areas we cannot. In general, at first, all the areas we can do that are in the flood zone, the spaces available. We have a fire marshal now, and we are going to take care, he's going to take care that it has the proper space in between the dwellings, especially on the hill. So I don't see, but I'm not specialist in that. He's more specialist than I am because he's an architectural designer. But I don't think we are going to have much space on the hills. But the city is addressing the flood issue. We have the plans, we are going to have the funds, and that hopefully is not going to be a big problem. So it's still going to be the junior accessory dwelling, I never remember the name, it's still a possibility of even being in the flood zone, in my opinion.
Is it over here?
It's over to you.
First of all, even though that this is a smaller solution compared to other solutions out there, there are actually, I live on one of the hillsides in Christmas Tree Hill, and there are a lot of second units on Christmas Tree Hill. They tend to be the place under the car deck, the place under the house, the attic. There are a lot of informal and not always permitted, fully permitted second units. So the question for the town is, when do you bring those in and make them legal? Do you give them forgiveness? Do you set certain standards to make sure that they've got proper grounded outlets, proper smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, so safety, and lift up the safety issues as you give approval to all of those second units that actually do exist on hillsides. I want to go back a second because our council this winter, downzone, we had in our general plan 15 to 25 units as the density per acre that was desired. And even though the standard, I guess Judy is gone, the standard that we all adopted was 20, the default standard, our council this year said, no, not 25, not 15 to 25, but 15. That's a 40% drop in density for workforce housing, 20 units to the acre for seniors housing. That's a mistake. We need to bring it back up to the 20 units to the acre, which is the rest of the county default.
I think that my general answer to where do you put secondary units is the same as my answer to where in general do you put affordable housing units. I think that's everywhere or anywhere. I don't think that that the town needs to necessarily have a role in determining where these units are going to go. I think that that is ultimately up to the homeowners, the owners of the primary residence. I think it's up to them to determine whether or not they feel that building a secondary unit on their property is a wise investment. And I certainly support the town putting forth all the information they need to make the right decision there and helping them, should they decide to go ahead with a secondary unit, making sure that we have a streamlined process for them to be able to do that. But I think that there are lots of places in town where a secondary unit would be appropriate. I wouldn't build one in my neighborhood, which is right Bayside, Mariner Cove. I wouldn't see that as a wise investment, but if a neighbor feels that they are going to be able to make a return on that investment and they're passionate about providing more housing for the community, go for it. I think that's fine.
I would like just to add, the council position in this will be to facilitate and not to put hurdles on it. But ultimately, it depends on the homeowners deciding to do so. You just can't say, yes.
Okay, David, again, how about fire prevention? That's the other side of the coin. What is Corte Madera doing to prepare itself?
For 15 years, I've actually been advocating that we in our little town unify our fire service with that of Larkspur. We have finally nearly completed the process of consolidation of those two, which actually brings in the opportunity for better training. Those who were primarily firefighters in Larkspur weren't getting the paramedic training that was available and is available in Corte Madera. Now everybody is getting that training. It seems to me that the firefighters who have endorsed, I think each of us have said, we like this consolidation very much. And so the professionalization, the diversity, and we're saving $750,000 a year because they're consolidated services. 12 years ago, when the CERT program first came out, I put my hand up and said, I want to be trained. I was trained. Then 94925, Get Ready. And I was a trainer for 2 years for Get Ready, 94925. And I'm now a block captain and a member of the steering committee of NRG, Christmas Tree Hill, the neighborhood response group, which is on the team. I think all of us want to continue funding this function in Corte Madera. All of us have an intent to keep that going and fund each of these neighborhood response groups.
I think fire safety is a huge challenge for our town going forward. I think the Santa Rosa fires were really eye-opening to a lot of people, and that's certainly something that I'm hearing from voters up on the hillside in Corte Madera, is they're thinking about fire in a way that they weren't before these Santa Rosa fires. I recently spoke with our fantastic fire chief, Scott Schertz, and was able to get a lot of great information from him about where we stand and some insight on what we need to do moving forward. I also spoke with several Corte Madera firefighters and was honored to receive the endorsement of the Marin professional firefighters. So I believe that the merger of the Corte Madera and Larkspur firefighters into the Central Marin Fire Authority is fantastic. It's giving residents better service at lower cost. That's fantastic. There's still a lot of work to do, especially in public outreach. I know that defensible space, the firefighters are having a hard time getting people to comply with defensible space guidelines, so I think that's really something that we're going to have to emphasize going forward. I also understand that the fire department would love to see greater enrollment in the town's emergency alert system, which is independent of the county emergency alert system, so I'm looking forward to supporting them and helping get enrollment in that program up. Thank you.
I'm about to talk to Fire Chief Scott Schertz. I didn't do yet. I just joined the Christmas Tree Neighborhood Response Group, and I don't feel I am equipped to answer this question, what you can do. I totally support the funding for all this, and I've heard from the fire marshal recently hired that he's going to work hard on the defensible space in between the houses, and I'm happy about that, even because I live in Christmas Tree Hill too. But I need a lot more information, and I'm diving heads first, learning all that right now.
another question, or you want to do a wrap-up?
Is that a question for the Corte Madera, or, because we are running up against time limitations?
You want to do closing?
We didn't plan a closing, so,
Okay,
and we're right up against the time, so if that's okay.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, the next group of candidates, two candidates, are the candidates for the county assessor, recorder, clerk's offices. Oops, a little typo there. Shelley Scott and Jenny Matson. Do you need more water? Here, you can have. Shelley, is there enough water? Do you need more?
There won't be for the next person, I'm sure.
I got lots of.
Okay, I don't have any notes because my father said, basically you have to remember, there's three things. 80% is showing up. 10% is knowing your stuff better than anyone else. The other 10% is look like you're there to do business. So hopefully I've got 90% done. Just to start a little bit is, first of all, who am I? Why do I want to run for this office, and why am I qualified? First of all, I come from the Midwest. I went to University of Wisconsin-Madison. I got a degree in English. I moved to California in 1998, and I was in technology. I worked for McDonnell Douglas, which was then bought by Boeing. I was a technical recruiter and also in human resources. I managed a large group of people. I was in technology with them, and then we hit the dot bomb in 2000. I then opened my own company. And basically, I was doing recruiting and change management. After that, I got my real estate license. And I've been practicing real estate for the last 16 years, and the last 10 years with Golden Gate Sotheby's. I guess now is the part is, why do I want the job? I always thought I would be in public office. I didn't think I'd be doing it right now. But a very good client and friend of mine approached me, and she works for the county. She's been working with the county for 15 years. She said, Jenny, I know how you work, and I need somebody, or we need somebody who's from the private sector, who's going to give a different perspective. And I thought, no, she's kind of crazy, but maybe I should give this a shot. I then decided to run for this office. Why am I qualified for this office? Because I care. First of all, I'm not doing it for the money, that's for sure. I'm doing it because I care. I'd like to make a difference. And I have management experience. The most important thing, I think, for this position. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to start off by thanking you all for allowing me to speak to you today. My name is Shelley Scott, and I'm actually running for the Marin County Assessor Recorder Clerk's position. You may not know much about the assessor's office. Many people don't. So I'd like to share with you why this work is so important. Assessors determine the worth of homes and commercial properties, and we help property owners understand what changes might affect property values. So whether you're a homeowner, or if you're a renter, or if you're seeking business space, all properties are influenced by the work we do in the assessor's office. I've served in the office for over 30 years, not only the assessor's office, the county clerk's office, the county clerk was under Howard Hansen, and the recorder's office. I am certified by the State Board of Equalization not only as a business auditor appraiser, but also as a property tax appraiser. I've worked in all the departments, every division. I'm certainly qualified to hold this position. Some of the things I'd like to do in the office is I'd like to streamline some of the processes. I would like to make them more transparent and accessible. I would like to update our systems using modern technology, and I'd like to improve the workplace functionality. Every day, people come to our office and they're frustrated and they're confused. And I like to help them, replace their confusion with clarity. I get a great deal of satisfaction helping people. It's what I've done on school board. I've served on the school board in Novato for the last 8 years. I had the opportunity with the school board. They sent me to a Masters in Governance training program where we learned about policy, HR, budget, a lot of tools you learn in running a big organization. Something else I want to just mention is this isn't just about the assessor's office. This is also about the recorder's office and the county clerk's office. The recorder's office, they're the holders of, all of our title and your deeds. They're a very important office. And the county clerk's office is also equally just as important. They're the folks that are taking care of your fictitious business names, your notaries, your bingo licenses. There's a lot that we do and a lot that, our great staff is working on. Just to give you some information of the folks that I've been endorsed by, I've been endorsed by my entire board. Oh, sorry. I was expecting the red card too.
Okay,
I'll
all right.
write that down for next time.
Okay.
Jenny, and both of you will answer this question. Currently, there is a move afoot at the state level for a ballot measure that would allow an out-of-county homeowner over 55 to transfer his or her Proposition 13 base year property tax value to a new residence in any county in the state. Years ago, Marin County rescinded an ordinance that allowed out-of-county transfers because Marin lost revenue. Do you approve such a measure imposed by the state?
Absolutely. We need to have some options for our 55-plus residents. I mean, it's ridiculous. As a real estate agent, I've seen people who are just stuck in their residences and they don't know where to go. And they might want to go and be with family that's in a different part of California. They might want to go up to Napa, Sonoma. We don't have reciprocity. There's no reciprocity right now. I mean, we have reciprocity with a few counties, but we're not reciprocating with them. I don't see why this wouldn't benefit, and I know they say, oh, we're going to lose tax dollars, but they're not looking at the whole picture. They're not looking at it in totality. There's so many different factors that are involved in what is going to benefit the community. And at the end of the day, isn't it that we want to benefit the residents? So it's not just about money, guys. It's about the whole picture. So absolutely, I absolutely support it.
Shelley?
I'm in support of this as well. When you're a senior citizen, you're generally on a fixed income, and it's very difficult to, if you were to purchase a new home, to afford those taxes. So I'm definitely in agreement with that. I would definitely support that. I agree that seniors, if your son or daughter who's going to help you age in place lives in another county, it would be very beneficial for a senior to be able to transfer their tax base and have that family support and help to, help them in their golden years.
Hi. Let's see. The county recorder, county clerk department is a multifaceted operation involving 3 non-related functions. What improvements or changes would you like to make for overall cohesiveness and/or efficiency? And if you list a couple specifically, one may be, how will you make property taxes more understandable?
Well, I think our recorder's office is doing a great job. I think staff is terrific down there. In terms of making assessments more understandable, I think on the website we could probably do a better job with the Q&A on that. I think that, oftentimes when people visit the website, you have to have a parcel number in order to get some of the characteristics and some of the information around that. I think if we could change that up and put the address on, because a lot of people don't know their parcel number, but they know their address. So I think that that's something that we can be helpful with.
Technology. I'm going to keep talking about it. Video is so relevant. And if there was a video that someone could just click on and it would explain the process, like how awesome is that? But we don't have anything like that right now. We can talk about the website, but we need to make it more friendly especially for our older residents. So that's one of the things I didn't implement, sure, as far as making it easy.
So I think we start with Jenny on this one. Do you have any experience with budgeting and in dealing with sensitive employment issues?
Well, definitely the sensitive employment issues. I come from an HR background, and so I am used to the hiring and firing of employees, which is never fun. So that definitely I was more on the hiring side, but when things hit, as far as the dot bomb, then change management, that's when I was having to let people go. And it is a process, and it's not much fun. Budgeting. Yes, when I was at Boeing, I did overlook a huge budget. Again, that's a long time ago. I've been practicing real estate for the last 16 years. Myself, as an entrepreneur, I have to be pretty darn good about my own budget. So in order to run my business for the last 16 years, a successful business, I've had to definitely watch what I'm doing, and so far so good. I'm still here.
Well, yes, I do have budgeting experience serving on the Novato School Board. We are in charge of a very large budget, and in fact, we just recently had to cut $1.5 million from our budget. We are in declining enrollment, and we are funded by the state by the average daily attendance of our students, and that's how we receive the majority of our revenue. And when we realized that we were in deficit spending, we had to adjust our budget. We kept it away from the school, from the classroom. We kept it actually at the administrative office, and thankfully we had some attrition, so we didn't actually have to pink slip anyone. But yes, I've worked with budgets extensively for the last 8 years on the Novato School Board. And what was the other piece?
Budgeting and sensitive employment issues.
Yeah, so we have one employee, and that's the superintendent. And we have to also give an evaluation every year and direction. And so, yes, I am familiar with that as well.
Okay, let's see. So you started with Shelley
No, Shelley starts the next time.
next time? Okay, Shelley, what is your position on treating commercial property differently from residential owner-occupied property?
Well, I would be supportive of a split roll. Right now, I believe that the majority of the residential side is really carrying the load. I would like to see some changes around that. I think that for the commercial properties, I think a lot of businesses have some great lobbyists up in Sacramento. I think that there's some loopholes that could be closed, and depending upon how that split roll is structured, that would be something I would consider most definitely supporting.
Danny?
Again, I would have to understand exactly what the legislation involved, but I would say I'm against it. I don't think it's a very good idea. We don't have a lot of corporate entities in Marin County. So if I'm looking at what our corporate is, it's small business. Pardon me, I'm losing my voice here. It's small business, and do we want to put them out of business? I said to somebody else, I was like, when you go home tonight and you're driving home, look and see at every commercial building, and you're going to see a for lease sign or for sale sign, and that's something that we should be very, very cognizant of, because I'm telling you what, it's not going well for small business in Marin County right now. And so for us to do a split roll, that is just going to hit our small business or our retail. I'm trying to think who else we have big. Autodesk, not that big. They have a small part. We've got Kaiser. We've got Sutter. Maybe we'll get somebody big in Fireman's Fund. But for now, we don't really have anybody that is going to show us the money. So I would say no. I don't think it's a good idea.
you believe that the computer system in the assessor's office, these comments showed up in the questionnaires, is as efficient as it should be? And if not, do you recommend or have any solutions?
My turn?
I think it's Jenny's turn.
Jenny's turn?
Oh,
Okay.
Well, I don't work there right now, so I can't, specifically say what the problems are. I can only talk about my experience as a real estate agent and understanding the tax records that we get from the offices. And they're a mess. And there are changes that need to be done as far as this is concerned. Now, technology-wise, what needs to be implemented, I'm not exactly sure. I'm not in there yet. But once I would get into office, then I could analyze it and say, okay, this is what needs to be done. But what I can say is this, is that there's many moving parts to it. There's the title officers, when they're bringing information in, there is a lot of different parts, but the technology does need to be changed, and probably more the systems need to be changed.
So it's one of my concerns. We have an antiquated computer system that is over 20 years old, and the programmer that was instrumental in developing it is just retired. So I do have some serious concerns around that. It would also take negotiating with the supervisors. They're the ones that control the budget for the assessor's office. So it's going to take some working with them and helping them to understand that we're going to need a new system. I think there would be some great opportunities for the office in terms of helping staff be more efficient out in the field with various iPads and electronics. Currently, when we're out in the field, we have a 100-foot measuring tape that I'm asking a homeowner to hold on the corner. And I just think that we ought to be able to spend a little bit of money and, get some laser guns and be more efficient and, make the process a little bit easier. I think that something else that we can do in terms of our permit questionnaires, right now, they're all on paper. Oh, okay.
All right, Jenny starts this one. What have you done to demonstrate your commitment to the people of Marin?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I'm a stand-up citizen, first of all. Haven't broken any laws. I've been volunteering for a long time. I have been an active philanthropist. I was a member of Rotary, went to India with a group of plastic surgeons that performed surgeries on children with cleft palate and cleft and burn victims. Again, that's in India. It's not in Marin County, but it was with a group of people who are like-minded that want to do something different. I am also a supporter of MAWS, which is a huge thing with my alumni group. So those are the two things.
MAWS? What is MAWS?
Marin,
I think it's called a piece.
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a new name, Center
Yeah,
for Domestic
exactly.
Peace.
Yeah, abused women's. So, yeah, they changed the name of it.
So I was born and raised here in Marin County, and I've been serving my community my entire life. Not only have I served in the assessor's office, I've served for the last 8 years on the Novato Unified School Board. I'm also serving as a Marin County Parks and Open Space Commissioner. I served 6 years as a Marin County Human Rights Commissioner. I've been always very active in my children's schools. I've been active at the Margaret Todd Senior Center. My parents always taught me that you have to give back. You're part of the community, and I have to say it's one of the things that I love doing the most. I get real satisfaction. It just really warms my heart to help people, and that's why I'm running for this position. I want to help people, and I want to make some improvements.
Okay, so what do you think?
Thank you. I think that was
We get
good.
a close?
That's it, you think?
Uh,
Or one more?
Sure, I think we have a couple minutes if you want to do a closing.
Okay.
Well, this is,
Go ahead.
Do you have a question? from the-
Questions?
Unless
Yeah,
you have a
there's no more
question.
questions.
We prefer questions from the audience, so if you have a
Oh.
question, okay, all right, we'll do that instead. Sorry, ladies.
it's, actually, we have it in our version and then this version too, so that's why I wanted to do it. Okay, so now, Shelley this time?
Yes. Shall I start
Shelley.
first?
Okay, we've got two questions that are related. Would you support options to expand tax relief to empty nester 55-plus adults who are looking to downsize? What would you do to bring property assessments to a lower level, encouraging homeowners to remain and help the economy? So,
Well, I think you might be talking about the Prop 60s, and that's basically where you can transfer your tax base from one property to another. If you're a senior citizen over 55, you can transfer your tax base from one property to another. You have to meet an equal or lesser test. So, for example, say you sold your property for $1 million, you'd have to buy another property for $1 million or less. So that's something that you would be able to do.
yeah, but that's not what they want to do, I don't think.
What's the
If they do it,
specific
they want-
question?
What would you do to bring property assessments to a lower level, encouraging homeowners to remain and help? Or would you support options to expand tax relief for empty nesters? So the idea is staying put, but paying less taxes. I think that's what they're asking.
Well, they're usually
Well,
already paying.
they're already-
They're already paying like a, I mean, Prop 13 caps it at 2% per year.
Right, but maybe they came after that, you know? That was a long time ago.
That was 1978, yeah.
Yeah.
It still applies. I mean, basically,
Not
when you
if they bought a
purchase,
house
when you
afterwards.
you purchase a home, anytime it's reassessed at
Right.
the purchase value.
That's what they're asking.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and
yeah.
then but they want to pay less taxes. I don't know.
The
if
law,
that's-
the law doesn't.
The law doesn't,
It's not
I
written
mean,
that way.
Yeah,
Not
I
much
mean,
you
that's
can do about it.
legislative. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well, that was what, yeah. Okay, so you sort of both answered it together, so that's fine.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
don't get to do close?
We're kind of,
Okay.
run up against time and,
I think you
sorry.
two were pretty clear about your.
Yeah, we decided not to do that unless we had extra time, but sorry. Thank you. Okay, the next group of candidates are candidates for the Marin County District Attorney's Office. We have A.J. Brady, Lori Frugoli, and Anna Pletcher. Okay, A.J., would you like to start? Introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. I'm A.J. Brady. I'm running for Marin County District Attorney. I want to thank everyone for coming out on a Monday night and caring a little bit about this race. We haven't had one for District Attorney in a very long time. Most people think of District Attorney, they're thinking of Law and Order, Perry Mason, something like that. And it's an exciting time to think about the role of criminal justice in your life. Marin County is a relatively safe county. It's the safest in the state of California. And what that does is afford us the opportunity to think about criminal justice and think about whether or not we can have a justice system which reflects the values of the community around it. For time immemorial, across 2,400 district attorneys' offices, people were elected district attorney by scaring people and saying they're going to be tough on crime. But in a community like this, that maybe rings a little false. We don't need to be tough on crime in this community right now. What we need to be is smart on crime. We need to utilize our resources in a way consistent with our values and use practices that are backed by evidence, practices that are backed by research. I'm proud to say that I have experience doing those things. I've always been interested in statistics-backed research, practices that have been tried and true to actually reduce recidivism, make positive change for our community. It's what led me to create a housing in lieu of incarceration program right down here in San Rafael and expand and create a restorative justice program to better serve victims. It's those same practices that have led me to have the support of my own office, the Marin County Prosecutors Association, but just as important, the support of the Criminal Defense Bar. those who we would collaborate with in the future to build programs. Along with that support, I have the support of Supervisor Katie Rice, Steve Kinsey, school board trustees and city councilmen across the state, across the county of Marin, who back my vision of a smart on-crime community. Thank you.
Anna?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out here tonight. My name's Anna Pletcher. I'm running for district attorney. It has been 20 years since we have had a contested election for DA. Did you know that it has been 70 years since someone outside the district attorney's office has had that top job? That is a long time to be recycling the same ideas. It is time for a fresh perspective. It is time for something new, and that is why I am running. I was a federal prosecutor for 10 years, worked my way up to assistant chief of my office in San Francisco, just the second woman to have that position. And I am proud to have served as the Marin Women's Commission chair for 2 years. I served on the commission for 6 years. We co-founded the Marin Coalition to End Human Trafficking when I was there. So I've been working tirelessly for women and children in this community for many years. Now we have this opportunity, after 70 years, to bring some change to the DA's office. What would that change look like? It's time to do better for victims of crime. It's time to do better for our families and to bring the DA's office into the 21st century. It starts with taking care of our victims by bringing rape kit exams to Marin County. Yes, instead of outsourcing it to Vallejo, let's bring them back here. Let's fix our bail system. Let's protect our environment. These are smart reforms that make us safer, that build a stronger community, and that save taxpayer dollars. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Marin Democratic Party, by the Sierra Club, by Congresswoman Lynn Woolsey, by Indivisible Marin, by retired Judge Faye Diopel. I saw Wandine here earlier today. I'm proud to be supported by these leaders in our community, and I hope to earn your support. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Lori Fragoli, and I am the most qualified for this position. And I've been at the DA's office 28 years, and before that, I was a police officer. So I have the breadth of firsthand experience, both before being a prosecutor and as a prosecutor, to lead this office into the future. I am the person who has been endorsed by all 3 former district attorneys, as well as the sheriff, Judy Arnold, Denise Athis, and Shushma Taylor, who runs Centerpoint, our primary care for drug and alcohol people in this county. And I think that should speak volumes to you about my ability to collaborate in the community with people. I think it's important, too, that my experience shows in my platform, which I was not afraid to put out day one. Yes, change is needed. An experienced hand has to be the person leading that change, someone who's actually been in the trenches in the courtroom with these cases and victims. So my platform's number 1 is to establish a veterans court and also expand our other restorative justice programs for our youth, our underserved, our mentally ill, and our drug-addicted people in the community. I want to have one specific assignment in our office for a deputy district attorney whose only job is going to be to prosecute those who prey upon our seniors, whether it's physical or financial abuse. When that DA is not in the courtroom, they're going to be in the community educating our seniors on how to protect themselves from being victims. Guns. I'm the only person who had the foresight to mention guns in my platform. We're going to track guns, which we don't do now, and see if guns that are seized in Marin County have been involved in other crimes. And finally, I'm going to have an opioid documentary, which we're going to take into the schools and show to the parents. And lastly, I am going to create a new and different and equitable culture within the district attorney's office. And the staff, the inspectors, the victim witness advocates who go to court, they support me because they know I'm the right woman for the job. Thank you.
Okay, start with AJ. Please describe your experience handling and prosecuting child abuse, sexual abuse, and domestic violence cases.
Sure, I'm currently doing that job, domestic violence, child molestation, sexual assault cases, my third rotation doing domestic violence cases. These cases are remarkably heartbreaking all the way through, and they require an absolute dedication to the victims and understanding both the law and the nuances in protecting victims. I'm happy to say I've done that, but I can say that these cases are infinitely more difficult emotionally to deal with as a prosecutor than even your homicide cases, and it does take a dedication to that, and I think that ultimately, while the numbers aren't sky high, they're high enough to be concerning, and it should be a top priority for our community.
Hi, thank you. So when I was at the United States Attorney's Office in the Major Crimes Unit, I prosecuted an internet predator who targeted women, and I'd just like to share that story. It's important to my views on how I prosecute these cases. This man was, he put up a fake internet profile online, and he had a long history as a career criminal, but pretended to be a retired Navy man and a writer. A woman, 40 years old, teenage children, divorced, thought she'd found the love of her life. He ended up stealing, at the end of the day, her truck, her money, and her gun, and we tracked him down. He started threatening her and a number of other women in his life to the point where they were afraid to leave their homes. I took that case, I prosecuted it, I took it to trial and won, got a very severe sentence, a 17-year sentence for him. And one of the victims came to me afterwards and she said, "Thank you for giving me back my freedom." And that case has motivated me throughout this campaign. It's one of the reasons why I'm running. Thanks.
Thank you. I have extensive experience in all three of those areas. In fact, I was the first person to work the domestic violence unit by myself, and that's when my law enforcement experience came into play, because I learned that you have to spend time with the victims and witnesses to these crimes at the outset, and right now we're not doing that as much as we could and should. I have personally prosecuted both sexual assault crimes and also child rape crimes, and I understand the magnitude of these crimes and the dynamics of it. As a police officer, I was actually the person who went to several crime scenes. One of them, I had to cut the duct tape off of a woman who'd been held hostage in her home. So I understand the significance and the danger of these cases, and I also understand how to treat the victims in a manner that we can get proper dispositions in the cases. If you've looked recently in the paper, there's been some criticism of my office, and I think that's something we really need to look at very carefully, and I'm the person to do that because I have the experience to carry that torch.
So several of you have mentioned that this is an opportunity with the current district attorney retiring after 20 years for some new management styles, et cetera. Specifically, what would you do differently, and how can you let us understand that you all have your legal qualifications, but what's your experience about managing people? You have an $18 million budget. There's about 80 employees there. So help us understand what level of expertise you have there to bring into the office. Is Anna first? Yeah. Okay. Anna?
Yes, thank you. So I was assistant chief of my office in San Francisco, managing an office of 25 attorneys plus 15 support staff. That's a total of 40 people. So it was my responsibility to hire, to do evaluations, to budget, to set office policy, and importantly, to work with an extensive bureaucracy at the federal level. So I've been able to do that and to get policies passed, to make sure that our office is running well and is healthy. And I tell you, it's a very different skill set. I was fortunate to have an executive coach for 9 months, personal executive coach, as I was a manager. And I learned a lot, that you can try cases, you can be great in the courtroom, but that doesn't mean that you've got the skills to manage an office. And I feel fortunate to have had the opportunity to develop those skills and to bring that here to Marin, looking at management best practices, making sure that our office is functioning at the highest level, keeping morale up and going, and making sure that we have the relationships that we need to have with the Board of Supervisors, who hold the purse strings for this office, and the other stakeholders in the community.
Thank you. I think first it's important to point out that the district attorney's office is more than just the prosecutors that you see when you have jury duty who present our cases. Our staff is really just over 25 attorneys, but everyone else are non-attorneys. And that's the culture that I'm talking about that really needs to change in this office. The people who are not attorneys are the people who support me, our victim witness advocates who go to court if you're a victim, the people who call you if you've been a victim of a crime and will sit with you, help get you restitution, get you a U visas. They unanimously support me. Our police inspectors who do follow up after police departments' cases are filed by our office, they support me. And I think that should speak volumes as to what is going on in the office and who has the ability to carry this office forward. I have prior experience supervising people in the office. I haven't handled budgets. I was involved in budgetary labor negotiations when I was at the Santa Rosa Police Department. I was on their board of directors for the association. And, but I am the person to carry the office forward, so thank you.
I presently sit on the Reed Union School Board. I've been two-time board president of that board. We have a budget of $20 million, 160 employees. In that capacity, I'm involved in strategic planning, consulting on employment, dismissal, lawsuits, litigation, budget, 3 times a year dealing with budget. I also sit on the Marin County School Board Association as its vice president, and I've also done lobbying with our Legislative Action Committee on that behalf. So I have an ample amount of experience there. Within the county, I was one of the first people to go through the Dominican Leadership Program to hone my management leadership skills. I continued that doing strategic planning within our office and 5-year planning for goals, and I think that that's how I would bleed it into the question, which was how do you make that change in our office? And I foresee our office not just being a passive recipient of crimes and cases, but one that needs to go through a strategic planning process to see what the shape of criminal justice should look like here in 5, 10, 12 years. Having been through that and trained on how to do those things, I feel equipped to do that for our office.
Let's talk about cannabis. It's legal now in some forms. Where is your stance, and what are you going to do to protect those who are doing things legally and prosecute those, I guess, who aren't? And we start with Lori.
So I'm not sure I know what you mean about protect people who are illegally using it. If there's officers who illegally seize marijuana when they should not, then we wouldn't file their cases. And, you know, that's part of our job. We are the filter of when officers do their jobs correctly and when they don't do it correctly. And I had a case recently where we had to tell a police officer, we're not proceeding on your case because you didn't follow the law. That's our job. We make these tough decisions every day. That comes, I think, with the management skills and having relationships and the trust and respect of law enforcement. So, other than that, I think what you're driving at is the other night we were asked about if people who are selling marijuana when they shouldn't be. And if the cases come to us and they're provable and it is a violation of the law, I think something like that is something we'd be putting through our diversion program where a person would get some education and training on what they should and shouldn't be doing. So it's not the kind of thing that we'd criminally prosecute.
It's the law. I support the new laws relating to the legalization of cannabis, but along with that came some implied promises that with the legalization that we would bring an industry out of the shadows, regulate it, and regulate every aspect of it from seed to sale. And those regulations are in development, and what I think this question is getting at is what would you do about individuals who are operating outside of that? And you should want to continue to prosecute people who continue to sell or violate the laws around marijuana illegally, because that wasn't part of the promise. The promise was if we create an industry that is legal, that there would be tax bases and it would be safer. You wouldn't have houses that were burning up from illegal grows. So we want to make sure that we're still robustly prosecuting individuals who are in the future violating these new regulations, because we want to move towards a more legal base, and I would be definitely devoted to doing that.
So the benefits of legalizing marijuana, as I see it, are 3. One is the opportunity to tax and get taxes from it. Another is the opportunity to eliminate the black market, and that's where we see much of the danger. that has come from it. And the final one is to make sure that we can regulate a healthy product so that people know that what they're using is healthy and safe. We've got to make sure that those promises are realized, and at the DA's office, to the extent it can enforce that, I will. But we also have to be also have to consider the safety issues that are out there as well, making sure we keep it out of the hands of our kids, because it's still not legal for kids, that we can think about our DUIs and make sure that we protect our drivers out on the streets. We don't want anyone driving under the influence. And then finally, the edibles. We need to make sure they're regulated and safe, because that can be a very dangerous area as well. So those are my priorities with respect to cannabis.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, back to AJ. Do you have any suggestions on how to improve the bail system?
Yes, I mean, I think ultimately, I think my viewpoint here has been pretty much maligned here. I'm for equitable improvements to the bail system. There's two central thrusts around bail, which is it's not fair for individuals who are so poor that they can't make a small amount of bail when individuals who make quite a bit of money can make a ridiculous high amount of bail. And that's true. And I think most prosecutors would say they agree with that. The bail system as it presently existed, or at least existed before 2 months ago, was essentially prosecutors and judges used high amounts of bail as a proxy for detention. And that's not right, but it was a tool that we used. And so I'm for equitable improvements to the bail system as long as it leaves in the hands of public safety the ability to keep individuals in custody who need to be in custody. And I want to see equitable improvements on the lower end. I don't think the current bill that's presently out there does that yet, but I definitely would be in favor of it if there were changes on that end.
It's past time for California to fix its bail system. Having worked in the federal system, Bobby Kennedy, more than 50 years ago, changed us at the federal level from a money-based system to a risk-based system. That's the future. That's where we're going. That means that instead of looking at how much money someone has in their pocket, we're looking at, is this person a danger to the community? Are they going to be a flight risk? Those should be the tenets of our system, not money bail. We're behind. Kentucky has already made the move. New Jersey has already made the move. Our federal system, again, long ago made the move. It's time for California to do it. I'm in favor of the legislation that's moving through. They're fixing the tweaks in it right now. It's going to happen. This is a wave of the future. We should be supporting it and 100% on board with it in Marin to do it and do it right.
I wrote an op-ed about this back in August, and I think we have a copy of it outside for you to read. Basically, I did not support AB 10 when it went through before because it did not focus enough on victims' protection and the safety of our community. That was a huge flaw, and Ms. Pletcher did support that, and it was pulled because it wasn't ready. It didn't protect the community. I think it is going to come back, and it is going to be safer. I've had cases where a man molested his daughter and got her addicted to drugs and paid $500,000 bail and stayed free until he went to prison. That was wrong. On the other hand, I see people on a daily basis come to court and not follow directions either when they've made bail or been ordered back. And in 2016, we had, I believe it was 1,500 failure to appear warrants that were issued for people who did not come to court. So the current system is currently broken, I agree, but it has to have protections for our victims first. And there are programs that do that, and other counties have done it, and I think we will get there. Thank you.
One more?
Our current district attorney supported a gun buyback program that was facilitated at least a couple of times. Has it been effective? Is there any way that it's been provable or the efficacy checked? And do you support the continuance of the program?
Anna.
The gun buybacks are a nice idea in theory, but they're primarily symbolic. If you look at the types of guns that are turned in, they're often guns that are not usable, antiques, toys, and so forth. The idea, though, that it's time to get guns off the streets is right on, and I absolutely support that. And we'll do every effort that we can to encourage people to turn in the guns that we have, because we have too many. There are too many out there. I also support making some effective changes in our laws that can help us be more gun safe. For example, red flag laws. Right now, California is fortunate to have a red flag law, which means that law enforcement personnel or family members can indicate when there's a person who they're concerned about who might not be mentally stable, and they can apply to have their guns taken away. I support expanding that to school administrators, for example. So there's a lot that we could do to make us safer on the gun front beyond the gun buybacks, and I would look at a comprehensive view of gun safety.
I have mixed emotions about it because I've seen the results. We do get a lot of guns off the street, but I do agree. I think it is, we could put our resources in a better avenue for gun safety for people. And the one thing I think we need to do, which I brought up in my platform, is when we seize guns in Marin County or anywhere in the state right now, we can't test them to see if they have been involved in another crime. And I'm not talking about the gun buybacks. Those guns just go into destruction and they're never tested for anything. But we have people up and down this freeway every day that are caught with guns in their cars, and we have no way of determining if those guns have been used in another crime. And I think our resources are better spent lobbying our next governor to put the testing equipment back in our Department of Justice lab so we can really track these guns. And there are laws that schools and family members can alert law enforcement. Law enforcement can get an injunction to keep somebody from having guns when they see there is a danger in the community. So, thank you.
So the research behind gun buybacks is that they generally have very little effect on gun violence and recidivism. They end up being a tremendous talking point and gesture, which I think is a good thing, but ultimately not necessarily worth its weight in costs. As I recall, the 2 gun buybacks we did cost in excess of $40,000, and ultimately being in charge of an office is about making choices, and $40,000 could get you 2/3 of a school resource officer. The impetus for the first gun buyback was the Sandy Hook massacre, and if you're talking about creating a safer environment on schools, having additional peace officer who is intimately connected with what's going on in a school, that seems like a more boots on the ground approach rather than a gun buyback. Similarly, you could fund half a district attorney or a paralegal to be out there doing education as well in a more direct way with people who are connected with the root cause of why we had a gun buyback. So I can't say I would continue that practice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have candidate for Marin County Superintendent of Schools, Mary Jane Burke. Press the little button.
The bottom says
Make it
push.
green, yes.
There we go.
I don't know if you heard, but you're not supposed to, I don't know if you know. Hi. Don't touch the stem.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us something about yourself?
Sure. My name's Mary Jane Burke. I'm the Marin County Superintendent of Schools. I hope to have the opportunity to continue to serve. I've been in this office for 6 terms. This is my 24th year. The Office of Education has large scope responsibility. I'm responsible for over $450 million of school money, responsible to ensure that our school districts are able to meet their fiscal obligations. In addition, the County Office of Education does a great deal of work related to directly serving students in our community. We offer special education programs directly to students from birth through age 22. We operate the alternative education programs, Marin's Community School, Juvenile Hall, a program at the jail. In addition, we have career technical programs that essentially provides school-to-work opportunities for our teenagers through pathways that are essentially in most of the high schools in Marin County. If you wanted to learn how to, oh, I can't see that far. Sorry. Okay, got it. I just realized I better wear glasses. So we have career technical programs. We operate Walker Creek Ranch, which has 1,700 acres out in West Marin. In addition, we work hard to ensure that the resources available to schools are used in a cost-effective way. So we work to share services between and among school districts. The county office provides the payroll, by way of example, for the school districts in our community, as well as the JPAs. Thanks.
You have 30 more seconds.
I have 30 more seconds. Okay, JPAs for health insurance, liability insurance, workers' comp. So imagine that we're the back room. When it's good for kids, we try to do it at the county level on behalf of all 37,000 students in our community. And when it's good for kids, we ensure that it happens at the local level.
Okay. What are your thoughts about charter schools versus public schools? Do they siphon money from more needy public schools? Do they create an elite school that is paid for by public funds, one which is not required to take certain students, whereas public schools must take all students?
So let me clarify with charter schools are public schools, so just as a way to think about that, in Marin County, we definitely have some challenges right now related to a situation where the state essentially approved a charter school that was not approved locally. And so I'm very much for local control. There's new legislation that's come forward right now that's being looked at the statewide level that would not actually permit school districts or the state to actually approve charter schools or to look at that more carefully. I do want to tell you that I started the first charter school in Marin County. It was a school for kids with drug and alcohol issues, and that is a program that continues to exist to this day. I do believe that if our public schools are paying attention to what kids need, providing innovative opportunities, that you don't need to have a charter school. That's sort of my bottom line, but charter schools are public schools.
Is that perception that they cherry pick the students and things like that, is that accurate, or?
Well, there's laws that, in other words, if a charter school can have some parameters, but you can't say, I won't take a child with special education needs, by way of example. That doesn't mean that doesn't happen across this state. We have had some very, very serious situations where schools actually did that exact thing, did cherry pick. And we had one actually in Marin County called Wise Academy that out of the blue ended up actually closing on January 18th, and we didn't find out about that till the end of December during the break. So just to note, there has to be oversight, there has to be transparency, and someone needs to make sure that they're paying attention. So there can be situations of abuse and misuse, for sure.
Good evening, Superintendent. We've heard from several candidates tonight talk about our constraints on some of our housing or our challenges with more housing.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us a little bit about what maybe Marin County and the school district may be doing to retain your qualified teachers so that we have these highly qualified teachers to remain in our district
Sure.
for the students?
Right. So we have actually a group in the county that's made up of both trustees and superintendents that's called the Efficiency and Effectiveness Group. And one of the areas that we focus on, and actually the focus this year is on housing, so we're looking at a variety of strategies. We're working with a company that is providing the opportunity for school employees. It doesn't just have to be a teacher, it could be a classified employee, to provide provide some resource towards down payment, so that's one. Number two, we are working on, can we get more opportunities for teachers to infill? So in other words, if there's somebody that has extra rooms in their house, might they be willing to take on a teacher as a way to provide housing? We, in addition, are doing some research on the new laws that are available that allow a school district to actually use current property and potentially use it for housing. So I try to be pretty connected to what's happening in that space and feel that there's some going on, but there's always more to do, particularly in this area. And I've been in conversation with the Sonoma County Office of Education about the potential of putting together housing that would be along the SMART train route. So we've talked about that as well.
We have a couple of questions from the audience about Marin City.
Oh, yeah.
So you can imagine the questions are asking about how do you improve the quality of education for the underserved communities, and how do you address the major educational issues? What have you done and what do you plan to do?
Yeah. So in Marin City, I'm actually very, very involved currently in the Sausalito Marin City School District. A couple of years ago now, approximately 18, 19 months ago, the superintendent resigned from the district, was ultimately convicted of a felony in another community, and essentially stepped into that district to provide support on behalf of the students, in particular in Marin City, in that we had not a single middle school student who was operating at grade level. So what we've been doing essentially is I assigned one of my staff people, the deputy county superintendent, to be there actually on a full-time basis. We provided business support to be able to look at the checks and balances related to the resource allocation. We have essentially looked at a variety of other data points, had the fiscal crisis management assistance team come in and do a report about what the areas that needed to be looked at, where best practices were not in place, and where fiscal alignment was currently not being addressed. In addition, had the Attorney General of the state of California take a look at whether or not there was a common law conflict related to the elected school board being aligned, several of them aligned with the charter school, which is a charter school that's in play right now in the district. So the commitment I've made to the children of Sausalito Marin City is that I will continue to provide direct support and alignment to ensure that all the children have their needs met. And when I say all students, I mean all students. The students that reside in Sausalito, as well as the students that reside in Marin City. And so we have a lot of work to do there. The work has begun, and it will take some time, but we are making progress.
There are numerous school districts in Marin County, as you know,
Right.
with highly paid administrators. Do you have any thoughts about the possibility of combining at least some of the school districts?
So let me just remind everyone that in order for two school districts to be combined, it will require the voters of both school districts to approve that. So that's sort of the end game of how you would actually provide some district consolidation. So the approach that I've taken is that to try to share services whenever we can. So you may or may not be aware, I'm actually the superintendent for 4 small districts. So we essentially do that in one group. In addition, in the Bolinas district as well as Lagunitas, there's a shared superintendent. We have business officers that share between districts, special education directors, and so on. So bottom line is that the approach that I've taken is that given that the way that things ultimately consolidate will be through the voters, is to take every step we can to be sharing resources, whether it's personnel or staff, whenever we can. However, just to note, in the Sausalito Marin City situation, we are in the process of doing a study about essentially whether Mill Valley and Sausalito Marin City might be able to collaborate as one district. Bottom bottom line, though, the voters would have to support it ultimately. But that has been something that's been on the table for many, many years, and it's never actually been studied. So we have a team of people that are doing that study right now and have a group representing all the stakeholders in that conversation.
Time for one more?
One more?
So this question has to do with bilingual education. How do you see or plan to address bilingual education needs? For instance, should non-English speakers be taught in their own language first?
There's definitely different school of thoughts related to this particular issue. Just to note that this next year, Novato, for the first time, will have a a program that will be totally bilingual, an immersion program available to all children, whether they speak English or another language as their primary language. We know that when you differentiate for children, you can make a big difference. So there's a lot of strategies that are identified particularly for bilingual education, as well as special education. They refer to it as differentiated instruction that can make a difference. If I had my way, I would essentially frame that to graduate high school in Marin County, you need to actually speak 2 languages, not 1 language. You look at all the other countries and you look at what the situation is. Our children essentially are at a deficit. So that would be one way to level the playing field, provide for a dual immersion programs throughout our community, and I think could actually make a big difference. And yes, sign language could work as your other language, but that I believe would be a way to begin to level the playing field in our community. Not everyone likes that idea, by the way.
It's all right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Certain that everybody will agree, I was really impressed with all the candidates. I mean, I think we have some wonderfully high-qualified candidates. I thought they were all good answers, and I learned a lot. Hope everybody did, too. Next on the agenda is the MWPAC Members Caucus. So in order to be involved in the caucus, you do have to be an MWPAC member. And all candidates, unfortunately, won't be able to participate because you won't be able to hear what's said about you. So if candidates and non-members could just wait out in the reception room, we'll have hopefully a relatively short caucus.